Hello and welcome to Feedback for the week of April 20th, 2011. Happy Passover, everyone. That's why I'm actually wearing a shirt with buttons today, because I have to go run to Seder from work once it's all over. We're being joined by Jake Gaskill, fresh from Park City with me, where I experienced colds like I have not imagined.
Yes, it was very, very cold.
Morgan Webb, fresh from Feedback last week, where apparently everything went just swimmingly.
It went really great. I mean, I think we can all agree. I mean, it was pretty fantastic.
It was probably one of the best.
I've heard a lot of really good responses to it.
Yeah, I've written a lot of posts about it.
Blair did a great job. Absolutely.
There are times where I start to feel like a president in the Philippines. It's like, is it okay if I go to the bathroom, or is someone going to be in my chair when I get back?
There, yep.
Okay. And Donnell Tucker, new to the show, or at least while I've been hosting it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Obviously, fresh off the Mortal Kombat review, which we'll be getting to shortly. But let's start with one piece of news that relates to the other major game release of this week. Jake, there's something called Potato Sack. It may allow people to play Portal 2 early, and that makes people angry. Explain.
Yeah, apparently. If it doesn't unlock fast enough. This was a kind of an ARG promotion that Valve has started a couple weeks ago, where they kind of put hidden items in a lot of these indie games that were available on Steam. And they had a big countdown clock that basically ended on Friday. That led to a GLaDOS kind of boot screen that had a listing of all the games that were in this potato sack. And at the top said basically, buy Potato Sack and unlock Portal 2 early.
What did Potato Sack sell for?
I think it's like $40, something like that, for like 13 games.
Yep.
Which is still
It's
great.
like 70-something for both things. And it's a lot of games, and they're good games.
They're great games,
yeah.
and that's the thing, too, which kind of makes this whole thing a little strange, because they're complaining about really good games and having to buy games. But I think the justifiable frustration was that it ended up being a little bit like a Christmas Story, and that all these people had this kind of build-up and this big kind of elaborate promotion, and then it ended with an advertisement. And I think a lot of people were like, didn't really see that coming.
But in the end, they're still going to get to play Portal, and they don't have to buy it.
Right. It's going to... The unlock is basically going to run out, I don't know, a couple hours early, as opposed to maybe a week early. If maybe that was my big thing. I think I like this idea. Obviously, Valve, a lot of credit for going through this kind of thing and setting it all up. Obviously, took a lot of work. And probably a week early might have been a little bit better. Not hours.
Like a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like some of these indie games, if not challenging, can be lengthy enough that, getting through all of them could prove somewhat challenging. And I guess if had people known of what their intention was earlier, more efforts could have been made. I mean, it sounds like it's causing some dissension. Like, some people think that they've done all they can, but then other people were just kind of like only putting a couple hours into these games.
Yeah. I mean, in the Wikipedia page has a listing of all the kind of the history of everything that's been going on, and people have been really good about coordinating and kind of grouping up and saying, okay, we're playing this game now, which is kind of pushing that co-op spirit, which Portal 2 obviously has. But yeah, I think there are probably people who weren't doing their part. But
was Valve in
I didn't
any
do
way?
my part.
You didn't do your part. You failed us
You
all,
didn't play
Morgan.
enough video game, Morgan.
Sorry.
Yep. Thanks to you, we have to wait 3 more hours to play Portal 2.
I mean, was it clear that the intention was to sell Potato Sack, or the more beneficent action of trying to bring more attention to potentially overlooked indie games? I mean, have they tipped their hand on this?
I'm kind of not so good on the marketing, because I feel like when they're trying to promote these indie games, which are great because people are like, oh, what's this game? But there's also people who are like, I don't care because I just want my Portal early. So I don't care if BitTrip, I don't care all these indie games. Okay, yeah, I see it. That's really cool.
Was BitTrip one of them?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's hard to go more than 5 minutes in that game. My hat's off to
Very
anyone who
hard
can
to
handle
do.
BitTrip Runner or any of the BitTrip games.
So I feel like
Super Meat Boy?
Exactly.
That's
So
not an easy game.
I feel like some people are just playing the game because they just want to really play the Portal 2. And when they didn't get it early, they got upset because they had to play 13 games.
Yeah, was it
They
judged on
overlooked it.
progress through the game or time spent on the game?
I think it was time spent.
Okay, that makes BitTrip a little... Because I could do that first level over and over again, because I can never finish the first level of a BitTrip game.
Which is a weird thing, because then it's like you're basically just kind of, I don't know, cheating the system, because people are just like, if you're going to go to bed, just leave the game on and let it run all night. And then, so that'll increase the thing. So it's like...
Well, even despite that, assuming that there are people out there that were kind of trying to, gank the system, it seems to have only had a nominal effect on getting Portal 2 out into people's hands. But it's okay, because Portal 2 is really good, and you'll be playing it as of now when you're watching this, because it goes up on a Tuesday. Let's read a quick comment from Sir Bob 23. Yeah, Sir Bob 23. It's Roman numerals, and there's all that math involved. because they were a sophisticated people. The Portal 2 early release potato sack ordeal seems to be making a lot of fans upset. Some to the point where they threaten to pirate future Valve games. Others defend it because of its support for indie developers. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously, you've
We're
heard
going
most
to
of our
show
thoughts.
Valve
them.
Wow.
by pirating their games. I wasn't going to pirate them before, but since they did this horrible thing to me, now I'm going to not
This is a
their
step
games.
up from the boycott over it. How dare you
Left 4
release
Dead.
a sequel to Left 4 Dead in a year? Oh, I mean, I got into trouble with that fan base because I thought it was just so insipid. It's so easy to get up in arms from the safety of your keyboard.
Yes, it is.
Maybe Valve, who may not be masters of the universe, thought it was a good idea, thought it would actually work out, people would get it early, and didn't do the math right.
Maybe they just thought it'd be fun and have people be able to play some indie games and learn about some new indie games on the weekend when they're waiting for Portal.
I mean,
No, that sounds crazy. That sounds totally
But they're
insane.
still
No, that
upset,
can't be
though.
true.
That's the thing about
they're
it.
very upset.
And that's what gets me. It's like they don't care about these indie games, that they're playing actually pretty good indie games. They're still upset that I didn't get my Portal 2 on Sunday or Saturday.
I know.
So I'm going to become a pirate
It's kind of like
and steal your game.
these Valve fans were living under Pharaoh for I don't know how long. And finally, they had to kill a bunch of firstborn children wandering the desert for 40 years before they finally got their Portal 2. I feel so bad for them.
It doesn't matter
Someone's got
because I don't have
Passover
a
on
Portal
brain.
2.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't
I
get away
gotta
from
go. I gotta go find a brand of kosher wine that does not make me want to just retch. And trust me, that's a challenge, kids. If that was the potato sack, then I'd be really pissed with Valve right now. All right. Another thing happened. Jake and I went to Park City, Utah, at the very close of ski season.
Yep, last day.
It's a beautiful place, actually.
It was
Did you guys
gorgeous.
get to go skiing?
It was gorgeous.
I'm trying to imagine Adam skiing is the.
That would have been.
Don't
pretty
imagine
nice.
me skiing.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying sight. I haven't done it since I was in my early teens because I got really insecure because everyone seemed to know each other at every ski lodge I would ever go to, and I felt like I was somehow getting in their way. And it's become a theme throughout life. But it was cold. They had just finished up ski season, but we got to see a bunch of games. The reason we were in Park City, I believe, is for Skyrim, the new Elder Scrolls game, which takes place in the most northern part of Tamriel, and it's got mountains and stuff like that. So it was an appropriate setting. But we saw about a 45-minute demo from Todd Howard, and I was, as a fan of the Elder Scrolls series, very, very, very happy.
Yeah.
at that.
And I, as a newcomer, I mean, I've played a little bit of Oblivion, but don't have a long history with the series. It's kind of impossible to not be impressed. Especially, you can go to the site and we have part 1 of our preview up, where it's basically kind of the first part. And when Skyrim opens up, that first vista is basically you don't want the character to move because you're just kind of soaking it up. And you kind of understand how
this
gorgeous
is their
the world
new
is.
graphics engine, the Creation Engine, which they've abandoned the Gamebryo, I'm going to call it Embryo, which is a graphics renderer, which has always made their games look a particular way and has been nothing short of unflattering to all of their characters.
The characters don't do well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and there's that trick where it does the close up on the character's face as if to just drive home the point that this is a world of uglies. And it was very natural animations. The camera didn't do that. The way that their dialogue works is that you can back out of it at any time. You can choose things more on the fly. It definitely felt like more of a living, breathing world. And there was a lot of ambient dialogue that was very informative, rather than having to stand there and talk to someone, find out all my information, turn my back, and go do something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's great about the world is, Todd Howard kind of drove this home, where he was like, a lot of engines are designed to not draw stuff, and ours is. We know going in, we're drawing everything. So when you see, he's like, look at this plant. The detail that's on that plant is the same detail that goes into that mountain that you see up there. And that mountain's real. You can walk all the way up to it from here. You can go anywhere you want, which is just stunning. And the characters, the character interaction is obviously a lot more natural. But what's great is they have this Radiant AI system now, which kind of handles quests and objectives. And they have these things called like miscellaneous objectives now, which aren't full quests, but you kind of can either bump into them, like you'll run into someone, they'll be like, oh, the shopkeeper said that he got robbed, go check it out, and that'll just come up as like a miscellaneous objective, and then you go and like talk to that guy, and that kind of leads you to like another quest, which is inside this dungeon. And if you hadn't gone into town, you could still go up into that dungeon and find that quest on your own.
It's dynamic in figuring out how to get you to a quest, but it also knows where you haven't been and can procedurally kind of set up ways to push you in the direction of regions or dungeons that you haven't seen where there's stuff that you want.
That is something that's been frustrating when you're like, oh, I didn't think to talk to that person, therefore I didn't get this whole quest chain that now everybody is talking about.
I mean, granted, my wife has issues with any game that Todd Howard makes because of the number of hours that I put into it. But usually I have this thing spread out on the floor and I'm playing Elder Scrolls or Fallout where it's like, it's one strat guide and then notes over here and a laptop over here so I can cross-reference stuff from maps just to be able to figure out where I want to go. So this hopefully will alleviate the need for me to become that obsessive in finding everything.
Because you have completion anxiety, and I appreciate that, because I do too.
Well, it's not even just completion. It's like, but what if there was something really cool?
Yeah.
And I missed it, you know?
Absolutely.
It goes back to that whole skiing anxiety that I have. It's just, I just want to belong.
Yeah, the thing about open worlds is that usually, because the problem that I have with open worlds is that, I'll go explore, and then I get in the cave, and there's like a dragon, and it kills me instantly because I wasn't high level. Now, when you're saying with the quest, the side quest or whatever, does that only activate because it knows the certain level you're at, like you're ready to take that on, or is it just
that would definitely be the case for like main story quests, which are just designed to just trigger, through progress. But it's leveling more similar to what happened in Fallout 3, and it doesn't allow for the disastrous things that could happen in Oblivion. So that I think it might be like every 5 levels, you'll see a jump in the challenge of the enemies around you.
Okay.
But they definitely have played a lot with the skill tree so that, as I found out in Oblivion the first time, you want to have a stealthy character where my only real skill is to, kill someone from behind, and then suddenly I went to Kvatch, and I suddenly had all these dinosaur monsters running around, and I'm like, I can't sneak up behind this thing and kill it. They definitely attuned it a lot more carefully, and the way here's the thing that is probably the most radical change, which is not something that can actually be shown easily on screen. They got rid of the core stats, so no strength, no dexterity. You have the 3 basic ones: health, magicka, and stamina, that really regulate just how you can function in the world. And then from that, you have all of your skills. And it sounds like a lot of that was because there is that sense of redundancy, because and then
over and over.
and I've always, especially in his games, because they do play real time, you start to get frustrated because there's this oblique under the hood die rolling thing that's happening.
Well, and they don't really tell you that much about it.
Exactly.
So you're sitting there, and this is something like that World of Warcraft or something like is going to do a little bit better. They're going to tell you that it's going to raise your crit by 3.1%, and that's information that is, if you're interested, like you can use. But when you'll see something like dexterity, you're like, what is?
And how is my dexterity going? An incredibly, if I
Do I
have low
want
dexterity but a really high dexterity skill,
Right.
And
How
then
does
it's like,
that work? Or strength, dexterity, or agility? You're like,
Jump higher and hit people.
I don't know.
But at the end of the day, the other benefit is they finally realized that when you choose a class, those things that kind of boost your strength or something like that, you then kind of eschew anything that isn't related to that, and you just kind of hone in. And that's a tough decision to make before you played the game, and you don't know how fun the magic is or something like that. They're allowing you to kind of go through it, and that you can pick up a little bit of magic, even though you want to be like a fighter. And when you level up, the big bonus is you get perks, and those perks are on skill trees. Well, I shouldn't say skill trees. The perks are based on a skill, and those perks have their own trees, and they seem to be a lot more material to how you play the game than some of the more silly ones that you got in Fallout, where it's like
So-
good at night.
What's also great about that, though, is that it's all based on how you play. So,
Okay.
you want to be a soldier, you want to be a warrior or something, just use your sword a lot. It'll increase. Your shield will increase. Use magic, it increases. So it's like you can constantly be changing that on the fly as you go along, and it's always keeping track of everything, and it all influences your skill level. So it's all working for
Because I
you.
would say there's no really like, I want to be a wizard, so I'm only good with magic. Because what I saw is that you can be a warrior and have magic.
Right.
So is there
Right.
really any like, I want to like pick a class or
I think that
Or
your
is it
class
just-
comes and I can't remember if you said that you may be able to refine things later in the game. I've seen so many RPG demos in the past few months. There's some things that I'm getting mixed up in my head, but no, that you can mentally say I want to go in this direction. But then if you start to see something that you like, it does give you the wiggle room to then start to focus more heavily on that and move in that direction. That's the kind of choice I think has been missing, not just in a game out of Bethesda Game Studios, but out of a lot of RPGs out there, where it's just you get kind of trapped in this caste system, I guess, when you're playing the game, and the combat just it's violent.
Yay!
It is
It's
not
visceral.
as
It's
violent
visceral.
as Fallout 3. You're not going
Yes.
to see like slow
Heads
motion
exploding,
heads cut in half or anything
eyeballs
like that.
But they
It's just
are-
a different aesthetic too.
Right.
Like Fallout
Right.
just reveled in that post-apocalyptic,
Exactly.
like cockroach, disgusting world. Whereas
Yeah. That was
Well,
one of the
it
funny
is,
things.
But I mean, you
yeah.
feel like you're actually doing something, and there were some finishing moves.
Okay.
There are finishing moves.
They weren't terribly clear on what triggers those finishing moves.
He said
but
it was like basically it just depended on the position of the enemies, and then I think power moves are usually your best bet.
and there's dragons, and their dragons
Dragons are
are flying
dragons.
around.
And they are just like any other
Love
character in the
dragons.
world. So
Yes.
they're procedural, so they'll just show up at any time
And
and chase you around.
They animate like a dragon's supposed to be. Like the closest I could think of was like Dragon Slayer, where it has that lizardine, almost snake-like thing with its
Right.
long neck,
Claw,
and
yeah.
they look scary. And I think that, I mean, some of them are almost like Big Daddies, in that they're in the world, they can just show up, but they're gonna be a very tough battle for you. So.
Did you guys defeat a dragon? Did you guys take their soul?
He beat them.
He beat
one
we
and
also
took its
we
soul.
saw a very powered up character for the
Yeah, it was
Right.
basically so it
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
die.
don't-
helps.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
like to show with all the armor
Right.
and
Yeah.
all the fancy weapons.
Look at all this
They don't
stuff
like to
that
show
you don't have.
He just
You
looked
know.
at it and it fell over. So I don't know.
Then
if
you
that's-
turn on the game and you're like, I have a toga,
A stick.
but
Oh,
I
boy.
wanted this thing with the
better run.
Also, we got to play Rage. What was
did.
your take on that?
Yes, we did. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I didn't realize until after it was over just what I liked about it so much. Like I was trying to figure out why. I was thinking back about it, and I was just like, it's pretty much like the smoothest shooter I've played
Yeah.
in the longest time. And I didn't necessarily think about why, the technology behind it, but we had an interview, and they were basically talking about that the id Tech 5 is this 60 hertz engine, which again makes absolutely no sense to me. But when you feel it, you can definitely tell. It's basically just how fast the game responds, and it's just that much faster than a typical shooter.
I mean, it controls like butter. It
does.
is one of the most. It was just nice to have the controller in your hand shooting something, and it's like, yeah, like on some intuitive level, I'm like, yes, I'm doing exactly what I think I'm supposed to be doing by hitting the buttons. And we saw 4 different levels that were quite varied. And I think the other thing that came across is different enemies will change your playstyle up dramatically.
That's one of the
in
things.
that
I mean,
game.
the AI is pretty crazy. The different enemies obviously have different tactics and stuff. My favorite thing was, again, there are different types of enemies. Some run right at you. Some go and kind of take cover and wait for you to come at them. But the retreat animation for these enemies is like the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's basically you come into a room and their guys are all set up, and you take out like a couple of the guys, and they kind of realize that their friends are dead and that they're in trouble, and they basically just like turn. I don't even know how to describe it, because it's like they turn and just kind of haul ass in the other direction as they like scramble to get into the other room, like away from you, because they're terrified. And I was just like,
Good, they
oh
should
my
be.
god, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm a
it makes
badass.
you feel
You
good.
better run. You better run. But it's good. Yeah.
While we did get the hands-on, and I think both Jake and I can say, yes, this game plays very well, and I think comparisons to Borderlands are just so very superficially aesthetic. The big thing that came out, and I was not there for that, is the decision in multiplayer to not have what id started, which is deathmatch and all the traditional shooter. It's all vehicular.
There's 2 modes. There's the vehicle combat, which is just basically what it sounds like, vehicle combat. You build up your cars. You kind of you have missiles and guns.
Well, no,
and
it's
stuff.
like a very apocalyptic Mario Kart.
That's
It's like kind of the way that I understand it to be.
what it
Yeah.
is. And then within that, they have kind of straight team deathmatch where you're just kind of trying to blow each other up. But then they have one that's like a secondary objective where you're trying to collect kind of nodes and stuff. But the other one is co-op, is on foot, and it's 2-player, and it's tied into basically the story. So there's different areas throughout the single player where you're here like, oh, well, this guy sent these 2 guys to go clear out this town. And then in co-op, you play that mission. So that's where on-foot co-op comes in.
But so why do you think that they're focusing on vehicles when the controls in the shooter are so good, as you guys are saying?
I mean, well, one, the controls in the cars are
good too?
pretty great
Okay.
too, and that was their
Alright.
big thing, is that they've made a big point of saying we didn't want to just throw it in and have kind of half-assed vehicles.
Exactly.
We want to make it a consistent kind of control across the schemes.
But as good as the controls were in playing the single player shooting, I have got over my head. I don't know about those controls, if that's how I was going to play sort of deathmatch or something like that. That I can't put my finger on it, but it doesn't have that. You know, you're used to that kind of ice skating, that kind of sensation when you're playing a lot of deathmatch, and it definitely does not match up with that. I don't know if that's what their thinking was. What I do find funny is, remember back when we thought that Rage was a vehicle combat game?
Right.
Yep.
Well, maybe they were working on the multiplayer first. I mean, it's funny that they've now admitted that the multiplayer is what we thought the entire game was back in the old days. Hopefully one day we'll get the entire story of what the process was. That's right. I want to briefly touch on Prey 2, because this is the first time anyone's seen gameplay. This is not Prey as we knew it. This is an open world game. and a parkour open world game.
Parkour, open world, Blade Runner, Alien Noir is what they're calling it.
Wow.
And yeah, basically the only thing it has to tie it to the first one is the story.
Well, also Tommy, who you
And
do not
Tommy.
play,
Right.
will be appearing inside of the
Right.
game, and it helps enliven that. But you're on a planet, not the planet of the takers, borrowers.
Givers,
Steelers,
Givers, something.
lovers.
Yes.
What are their
Haters, Jokers. I don't know what they're called.
The
I'm
guys
blanking
that
on their-
snatch you.
The aliens that
don't
abducted
fear
you,
the Reapers.
basically.
Okay, that's
Exactly.
part
That's
of
those
it.
guys.
So
The Reapers, right.
you're not on their planet, but they're tied into it. You're on a place that. I mean, funny. The only game I could think of that has this type of environment is Anachronox, which I do not fault anyone at this table for having not played. It was the last of the 3 Ion Storm games to actually be released. It was actually one of my favorites. Tom Hall worked on it, but it's that dirty sci-fi where you're just kind of in more like undercity, unpleasant people, a lot of crime and gangsters. It looks like a very fun environment, but it's one that I think we need to see in a few more months to see it fleshed out. But the parkour and the movements in it, the controls look like to be one of the most impressive. It's very vertical and open world, and there seems to be a lot of dynamic opportunities there. We just saw really the kind of peripheral missions when you're a bounty hunter, not sort of what a big sort of quest mission is going to be in this game.
If they had Crackdown into any game, I'm pretty happy. So
Yeah, and it looks like it does it.
Yeah.
The one thing I can say is when I watched Mirror's Edge
Yeah.
and I wasn't playing it, nausea came in. That was
not
not the
the
case
case,
when
yeah.
watching this. I don't know what they're doing differently, but it definitely does not seem to have the same vertigo effect of Mirror's Edge.
Right.
So do not worry about that. All right. So that was BFG. Because they decided to do it in Park City where it's cold because of Skyrim, I have encouraged Todd Howard to do an expansion set in Hawaii. Hopefully next year we'll get to reap the benefits of that. But let's get on to a huge game. Morgan, you did the review.
yeah, so
Everyone wanted
everybody
to
else
play
was
it.
playing indie games. I was actually playing Portal 2.
Which system did you play it on? Because it's available PC, 360,
I played
and PS3.
PS3
Wow.
because that's what I was handed.
There you go.
Well, also,
But that's what
that's the one I'm-
that's
I
what
know.
they sent us. However, when I purchased the game for myself, I actually did purchase the PlayStation
I did as
version
well.
because of the Steam crossover. Because you get a copy of of the game for Steam with the purchase. So, and I have to say that I played the entire co-op campaign as well, and I had no problems with. I played with Matt Kaya, and I had no problems with like connectivity or anything like that. Although we did start an Xbox Live party to talk.
No,
Mostly because Matt Kyle has no PlayStation headset.
We will be addressing that when Matt next
I
appears
was
on
like,
the
I
show.
have my headset ready. He's like, I don't have a PlayStation headset. I'm like, you don't have a USB headset, really? And he's like, not one that's long enough. I'm like, all right, I'm starting my Xbox.
That's embarrassing.
Surprise.
We need to start giving those away as prizes for just doing an email with us.
Something.
Yeah.
Send an email, you get a USB headset.
I have like 4 of them.
Please,
because it's the
share.
same one that works on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a normal headset.
Works on your PC.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
true.
Yeah,
it's great.
I got my.
And-
We'll talk about my phone off camera. 'Cause
Anyway.
I need a new one. So,
the
Morgan,
point.
what
Yes.
did you think of Portal 2?
I think it's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes.
It
I
really,
agree.
really is. It absolutely is.
Kind of.
So it's a full experience. So it's like 8 to 10 hours. I actually was kind of mad because I didn't fully time myself. I usually time myself, but I was like,
Same thing.
I'm like, oh, this is really frustrating. I'm gonna get up, go pet the dog, go get a soda, come back and sit down again. So even if I had timed myself, it wouldn't have necessarily been accurate. But Matt and I actually did time the co-op, and it was, we put in like 7.5 hours, something like
So
that.
you have, I mean, and both of you are very experienced players. So I think it's safe to
Yeah.
then say this could be a 20-hour experience co-op and single player for the
Yeah.
average consumer out there.
Yeah, no, I think so. And Matt and I we worked really well together because I would get stumped and then he would figure out the answer, and then he would get stumped and I would figure out the answer. So it worked out really well. But there are some head scratchers.
But that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
I found that because a lot of people were worried that it'd be too hard. They saw all the videos. They're like, oh my god, it's gonna be so much harder. I'm not gonna be able to figure it out. I played through it and beat it as
Yeah.
well. But ended up finding it to be perfectly challenging.
Yes.
That's the
Perfect.
word. And I was just doing my soapbox on it. I mean, I just played the old Portal. Their genius is in how they teach you stuff. That yes, I found myself with challenging puzzles, but I never lacked the confidence that I could solve it. And I cannot tell you how many games I'm just running to the internet because I've just given up.
You're just
It
like,
has it's amazingly well designed. Like I think people who are interested in game design should study this
Yeah.
game because that learning curve is absolutely perfect. The other thing that they really do well is they have a very consistent visual language. So like an example I used in my article, you know that you can never jump over a railing. So you don't spend half an hour trying to jump over every railing that you see because you know they're going to be consistent. It's like we've all, like Uncharted, for example. I can scale the side of a building, and then 2 minutes later, I'm like, I can't jump over that car, or I can't jump over that railing over there. So you don't know, so you keep having to try different things, whereas this game is so consistent that you know that there's a simple solution that doesn't involve you contorting, so you just have to sit and look for the visual cues and think about it, and it will come to you.
And it seems that in the stuff that tends to be a little bit more skill-based, when you're trying to shoot yourself forward, it's a little more forgiving. Because I was finding that when I was playing the old Portal, if you didn't hit the portal when you're falling down into it just perfectly,
well, that's why you have to shoot it right before you fall.
Yeah.
You have to fall first and then shoot.
I know.
Which doesn't work in the co-op because there's all these things where your portals disappear when you go through a certain room, and so you have to, like, preset all the portals, and it's...
Mind blowing.
Now they did bring in those new elements that were borrowed from the game Splat that allow you to bounce.
Fun.
How much does that open it up, and how much does that complicate it?
It actually doesn't complicate it at all. It's just really fun, and it makes you feel like you have some control over the world. Like, I got gel all over the place, when really, like, they knew exactly where you were going to be able to place gel. 100%, and they're just making you feel like you're in control. The bouncy gel was fun. The propulsion gel was fun. My favorite was the white gel, which lets you like basically a surface that you couldn't put portals on before, you can now put portals on. So you just feel so awesome when you're like, portals everywhere, portals everywhere. This doesn't help me at all.
Well, see, but I think that hits on the other thing that works so well in the Portal games that I don't see in either puzzle games or puzzles in other games. Experimentation is fun.
Yeah.
That like failure does not just have that. I don't want to do it.
You're not
try it
penalized
again
for failure.
Yeah, and it was just so nice. I mean, yeah, you can fall into the acid, but
You come
you're
right
back.
back.
You just come right back.
All right. Shake it off. It's cool. It's cool.
It's a little more punishing, but when I finished up, the first game that came to mind was Limbo, actually, when I was trying to compare it to another game.
Yeah.
Because the gameplay is pretty straightforward. You have two things. You can shoot two portals. In Limbo, you can jump and grab things. It's pretty much it. It's all about experiencing the world and kind of solving these puzzles. Limbo is a little more brutal.
See, I would liken it to the first part of Limbo, where the puzzle was based upon everything available on screen, and then suddenly, without them telling you, it's now you're manipulating the physics,
Right.
which
Yeah.
I never really got a good grasp on those physics in the first place. That I see the similarities there, but I think that comparison really highlights what
Right.
Portal does so
Yeah.
well.
They give you a message, like, they tell you basically, like, you don't need to go back there. You finished that area. Everything you need is a forward. So you don't have that thing where you're like, maybe I forgot to do that thing 4 rooms ago.
Yeah.
You know, they tell you, like, you go through a little, you know, what do you call those things?
I guess an elevator.
Those little,
Yeah.
The elevators. But also you'll go through these little sheets.
Oh,
Yeah.
The-
Erase all your old I don't
Yeah,
know
basically,
what
yeah,
they're
yeah.
called. But so you go through that and you're like, okay, I don't need to go back.
Yeah.
I can only go forward. So
And I think one of the really big things, if you're a Valve Half-Life fan, or just the fan of how Valve tells their stories, the scope of this game is going to be really surprising to a lot of people.
It is.
Yes.
The play, like there's so many points in Half-Life 2 where I kind of stop and was thinking back how I got to that point and how far I've come, even though I've only been on foot or in a boat or whatever. But it's basically all kind of linear to that point. There are so many points in this where you're like, wow, I can't believe where I am given where I started. And you're just like, by the time you get to the end, you're just like, I don't even know how we got here, but
and they're
it's been
also
crazy.
really good at trying to show you the story versus
Yes.
just
Oh,
telling
well,
you
they're
the story.
masters of that.
So you don't
Yeah,
feel like
exactly.
somebody's explaining to you, well, there's a company called Aperture Science, and there's a computer. Like, you experience it all. And I found myself trying to explain the plot to somebody, and they're like, wait, what are you talking about?
But no, it's
And
so
then
emergent.
there's this other computer, and he's your friend, and...
In all the
Like,
Valve
just
games,
play.
and this is what was true of Half-Life,
Yeah.
even, is that you infer a lot of the story, and by that you kind of get to own the story. You feel a little more
Right.
clever, and I think it really gets you more engaged with it. It's kind of like getting a New Yorker cartoon when you're young. It's like it's really funny because you're not supposed to get that cartoon because they're all about people behind desks and you're a child.
what I really I think is one of the most impressive things about this game is that it's incredibly polished. Like, there's not one pixel that is not in the place that it's supposed to be, and you don't see that. You see a lot of shortcuts in games. I mean, we see them because we review, and so we make notes of, they had to do that because, you know, it would have taken them 6 extra months to do that. There is not one shortcut in this game, and I was trying to think of other games that I've played that are this polished, and I could only come up with one, which is Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Guns of the Patriots, for the sheer polish, for the
Yeah.
sheer fact that like Kojima put every cardboard box where it was,
Yeah.
which is why the game took 17 years to make. And polish doesn't necessarily translate to fun in every case, of course. It just means that it was incredibly polished.
The animations mixed with the shaders in this. 'Cause I think the other thing we should talk about is that this has a more fleshed out story. I'm blanking on the name of the robot.
Wheatley. The
Wheatley
little
that
buddy,
meets you
yeah.
in the beginning. And that there's, once again, it's like a robot eye that they have characterized beautifully and probably will be on everyone's like favorite character of the year list.
Yes.
But I mean, I just the way that they really understood now the appeal of GLaDOS and the way it's incorporated in the game, the reveal of GLaDOS. I saw it in the trailer. I didn't care. It was very exciting to see it all over again. And there's that wonderful sense of reward that I want to get through every puzzle to just hear what she had to say next.
And they play
I mean,
they play with
really-
your expectations so
really
perfectly.
do.
There's a point early on. I don't want to say it because it'll spoil it, but they just
Yeah, don't spoil.
they just know what to do to manipulate you and to get you going.
Like, you're surprised. You're surprised until the just like last second of the game.
Yeah.
The whole way through, surprise, 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 surprise. Like you don't know what's going to happen up to the last minute, which is fantastic.
It's. I mean, I know they put their games out relatively infrequently, but I gotta say, Valve just has. They have some formula there. They're doing something up there, and I just want to just reiterate what Morgan said. I think this game really should be deconstructed in every good game program out there because there's so many wonderful answers to how you solve problems that are present in so many other video games.
And
Well,
listen
they also
to
have
the
the developer commentary.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. They have this developer
exactly.
commentary, so you can play through the game. There's these bubbles, and they talk to you about every design decision they make. Why we started in this room. We've always wanted to do this. You know, but don't. I mean, you shouldn't
Play
definitely
the game first.
and then go back.
Just go-
Yeah.
yeah,
You have to
exactly.
be very interested, and sometimes you'll listen to some commentary and you'll be like, I don't know what that meant.
I don't know.
They
I one of
did-
the programmers, and it was just.
They did that same thing with Left 4 Dead too,
Yeah.
where
With
they
the-
had the bubbles
yeah.
and you can like learn about
Orange
it.
Box
Like,
did the
whoa,
same
I didn't
thing.
know
Yeah.
they created like this in style.
They do
So-
share.
They
So
do?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
they're very
maybe
open. Like-
maybe everyone take a deep breath on the potato.
I know. I was just
sack.
gonna say, go out and complain, everybody.
I know exactly.
Exactly.
Really? I want to do a quick discussion. Somehow it fits into Portal. I don't know why, but obviously G4 is going a little bit green this week. You know, we have Earth Day. That's on Friday. And, of course, G4 has the G-Cycle program because electronic waste is a pretty serious problem. It's not nuclear waste, but it's kind of like, what do you think, Morgan? Like 1 or 2 down for nuclear waste in terms of stuff that takes forever to decompose and probably not good to get into our water stream. So with this going green in mind, I was gonna go around and just see, is there something that the game industry could do to further green initiatives? Obviously, there's digital distribution. Valve is very good with that with Steam. But outside of that, do you see any other ideas?
I mean, I think that's the big one, just because of the boxed goods. You know, we've seen a bunch of companies. EA, Ubisoft announced like last year, I think, getting rid of game manuals, making it more digital.
EA never had game manuals.
Exactly.
They were kinda like-
Are you talking
pamphlets
about the
too. They're
pamphlets
game
that they would
pamphlets.
send
I've
there?
learned more
Yeah.
about a game by reading the Watchtower than I have from an EA manual.
So there you go. So not a hard program to implement for them. But yeah, I think we'll be seeing more of that. I mean, digital obviously makes the
I
most
think we're all
sense.
going to eventually go all digital, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, you know, we could live without some of those horrible plastic controllers that everybody seems to try to put out.
That's it.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
third-party controllers
No
that nobody
manuals,
wants.
more
Yeah.
gear.
Nobody wants
No more.
those. Who buys those?
Well, you like the tennis racket that really
I do.
improves the
I
Wii
do.
tennis
I have to
experience?
confess, I do buy
What?
them.
What do you have?
You're the one.
I cannot tell.
Do you make them into a fort for an alternative living space, and that way you've actually made it go green?
Yes.
There you go. You've reused the old
Just keep
controllers and everything. Nice.
See,
how
I
I
thought
do
it'd be
it.
good. I use my play and charge case for the Xbox, except that now they're so out of battery that if I unplug it from the machine,
Oh, it just dies. I
It
hate
dies.
that. Oh,
So
I
now I
love
just
that.
basically have wired controllers. I'm doing my part for the environment. Wired controllers.
No more batteries.
Exactly.
You know, I think my one thing to throw out for the game industry is that there's a lot of games out there that kind of deal with an environmentally devastated future. We're leaving in an economically devastated future. I got the two mixed up. But it's become so commonplace that it's not novel, and so it doesn't really carry that weight of like danger. Be mindful what you're doing in your real world, and that a reconsideration is that the safest or is that the most necessary device to be used? And is there a way to actually kind of get better awareness that, hey, the BP oil spill's really scary, and get that back into some of those video games? But I've always thought that if we had a Blade Runner type society, would our games be about green fields?
Probably. They don't
Because
like flowers.
it's a fantasy.
Just turns into Brazil.
So obviously, for everyone out there, please go check out gcycle.org and all the other stuff on the G4 site and on G4 as we're heading into Friday's Earth Day. Speaking of Earth Day, Mortal Kombat comes to mind immediately.
Because we have to save the Earth, and
Right.
I did enter the tournament of Mortal Kombat, and don't worry, guys, Earth Realm is saved.
Sweet.
Once again.
Good.
So
All right.
the next
Back it
500
up.
years, I'll enter again, and hopefully I can
be
do better.
So, Donnell, this has been a long time coming. We've seen a lot of Mortal Kombat games. I think at some point last year, it was pretty apparent that this is not the DC crossover.
Nope.
This isn't that weird story game they had about 3 years back.
Shaolin Monks.
Yeah, Shaolin Monks.
With,
Good
Liu
remember.
Kang.
Nice.
I remember looking at it and playing it, but I would never call it the title.
Yeah, I can. It's like if there was a graph, it would be like Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, and then Mortal Kombat 4, 5, 6, 7. It's just the thing about the studio before it was Midway is that they always try something new. They always want to do something new because they already made 1, 2, and 3, and they're like, we need something new. And 3D fighting was the hit, so they tried that out and they were trying to perfect it throughout 6, 7, and I think Tobias left and made RPGs because he's really into stories. And it just kept going down and down. They really didn't find like their new voice in it.
It wasn't in
And-
Tao Feng, I can tell you that.
You can break bones, though. Come on. Come on. That's what I love. I love being able to not kick people in a fighting game. Why not? More than 4 times.
That is an
That's
old
awesome.
reference right there.
It was the first review
was
on
the
X
first
Play.
review on
That's why
X-Play.
Tao Feng will always be in my memory.
It was the first review on X Play.
So, and then now, like with, let's say, Mortal Kombat versus DC, you know, it was 2D, but you could switch it, and 3. Again, they're trying something new. It did not work. But with this one, with NetherRealm, but they were still working with Ed Boon. I think they got it right. I guarantee that they got right with this one
Well,
because
it's a beautiful game. As one who has
Definitely
not
is,
gotten to play it yet, from just the sheer visuals, they got the violence back. It's got something that feels very visceral, which I think has been lacking in the recent ones.
definitely it's that shock value of because I know up in the office, you know, I've been showing people fatalities, and there's one where there's a new Cybot where he calls in his other shadow and he gets the opponents each side of their legs and rips it apart from the bottom up. And it's just and it's painful because it's a slow rip. You know, it's not a complete.
Of course it is.
It's not
Why
it's
wouldn't
not
it be?
clean. You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's
pretty
not
tough.
like when you rip off Band-Aids
No.
as fast,
No,
it
no,
doesn't
no.
hurt.
If you're gonna rip someone, take your time and live in the moment.
Savor it, for God's sake. You're not going to be able
What
to
do
do
you
it
got
very
to do
often.
right after that? Get over to Fatburger? Come on, tear us slower.
So they definitely got back on the fatalities because, of
It's
course,
brutal. It's-
you know, because they've been kind of making it too quirky and not really shocking, kind of like, what was that? But they definitely got shock values for the fatalities. So the fatalities
Well, and the
are
like,
back.
and that like X-ray system
And
now,
the
with
X-ray
bones?
system, which
Yeah.
is a really cool and educational, I would say.
that's true.
I was like, oh, he broke his his skull right
Oh,
there.
the
I
sternum
just
looks
learned
like
it.
that.
My
Oh.
back can't bend.
I feel like a
that?
doctor. And definitely they were trying to put that in there, just kind of like Super Street Fighter, which it has like an Ultra and a Super, which is like this ability to come back. It's not, oh crap, I lost. I give up. There's actually, hey, if I can hit him with this X-ray because I have it built up, I could take out like 43% of his health, and I got it back in the fight. So it definitely opens up players to not just like give up. It's definitely a comeback.
Now, one of the things I've known about the Mortal Kombat series, because Morgan, if I'm correct, that was kind of your fighting game of choice.
I
back in the-
loved
yeah.
Mortal Kombat, and it was my fighting game of choice. And then I just was disappointed so many times that I was like, I guess I just don't like fighting games anymore.
But the control system, there was that point where it was kind of like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat.
Right.
And
Yes.
it was a big choice in that being adept at one did not mean you're going to be well.
Right.
They had a far different logic. In terms of this one, do you think it's accessible to newcomers? Does it also not completely abandon its fan base and how they know how to play the game?
Completely. It doesn't. Newcomers will definitely get used to it. And like I said, because of the X-ray, it definitely comes with like newcomers to be like, hey, you can actually win. Like you don't want. It's not like you have to learn the combo. It's really easy combos. The X-rays in the enhanced super attacks, and it's just smart tweaks in it that it's open up for everybody. And has a nostalgic feel because you'll be like, I remember that fatality, but they upgraded it to be more gruesome and more like.
That's what I was
brutal.
imagining was
Yeah.
happening when I saw the pixels flying on the screen, is what you're saying.
So it definitely, and like you said, there was Street Fighter and then there was Mortal Kombat. Now what I'm feeling is that they're kind of now making it the same. Like I feel like they were looking at Street Fighter and they definitely were like, let's make it like that. Because right
Well,
now,
their return to 2D was definitely following suit with what they did with Street Fighter 4.
exactly, it's like 2D. They're actually, and it is in the tournaments now, and I think it's like the highest purse for like Evo, which is like 30,000. So first place gets like $10,000 or $15,000. So it's like a big purse, and they're really trying to push it out in the tournament. And there's a lot of people who are kind of like skeptical. They're like, I don't know, but I definitely would try it and to definitely get good at it because I've seen some amazing combos and
Now, is
amazing
this
strategies.
something where people are all going to have fight sticks, or are they playing with
There
controllers
is a
still?
fight stick. Now, the fight stick's not your traditional Super Street Fighter 4.
Because we do know you love a peripheral.
Oh, you know I do. It's like the American style, which is like a cross. And when you first see it, you're like, how am I supposed to use that? Because a lot of people are used to the buttons like
Right.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This one's like an X. So you have like two buttons like this far apart. So you got to have pretty big fingers to reach the other side. But I don't know if people are going to hop on those fighting sticks as much because it's just so different. But it is going to the American style in the arcade, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And definitely what's new in it is that they have this tag team match. So you can have two players to work either, you can compete against each other or work on the same team and go in the ladder match. So, it's like you and me, Adam, can team up and take down Shao Kahn rather than we just fighting all the time.
All right, I like that.
It does
because
open up again.
outside of your dreams now.
Yeah.
Exactly. In real life.
Piggybacking is my
Awesome.
answer to success in fighting games. The story mode is also something that you took note of.
Big improvement because before it would just you play a single character and you get to see their story mode, which I always loved.
You get to skip their story mode, but go ahead.
I will debate against that because you know what? Because I kind of pair like before I go into story mode, I just want to. Mortal Kombat has so many characters that it feels like a soap opera. It's like I'm the doctor, and who's this appearing reptile? And he just comes in and does something crazy. It's like that's what I feel like. That's why it's kind of appealing because it's like a mature soap opera. But they do have just a story mode, which is pretty funny because how it takes at the very end of Armageddon, where everybody's dead. Shao Kahn's about to be turned into an Elder God. It's over, But all the games before were just visions that Raiden had. So you go back to the original Mortal Kombat at the tournament, and he pretty much tries to, I try not to spoil too much, but he tries to like avoid that. He doesn't want to do Armageddon. So it's a really cool story mode where once you fight, it doesn't feel like a cutscene. It just keeps on going. It just continues.
Now, do you get stories only for the character you pick?
No. In story mode, you go through a lot of people. I wouldn't say everybody. I think you go through Earth Realm or sometimes Outworld characters. It'll be like Chapter 1, Johnny Cage, and you'll go through his story, but it will connect to Sonya Blade.
Well, it sounds like that. Then that gives you the opportunity to experience a lot of the characters,
Exactly.
rather than just be like, "Well, I want to be Johnny Cage."
Who
and
should I
screw
be?
Everyone else.
Definitely, it opens up where you can try different everybody else, and pretty much again, but they still have the original pick a character, and they have their own epic storyline, which are fantastic. It's not text based because I know a lot of fans didn't like the whole picture and you had to read. So
I need to hear
they
John
like
over here.
moving animations, so they got that too. And it's definitely a very great game that everyone should try out.
All right, well, I'm going to give it a whirl. You've convinced me. 5 out of 5 from Donnell for Mortal Kombat.
5 out of
Morgan,
5.
5 out of 5 for Portal 2.
Absolutely.
Both of these reviews are obviously available at g4tv.com. So go read them and become smarter as a result. Donnell, you look
Also, I just want to add they do have babe-alities in there. You can turn your opponents to babies and they will cry. So I say it's even worse than
I heard babality. My heart sank there for a second. I love what you just told me. I want to jump to our question of the week, which is also about potentially undue anticipations. I don't know who this is from, so just, actually, I think it's from a whole bunch of you. I've been asking about rumors that Nintendo is going to be announcing a new console at E3 this year. This is coming from Night Ninja 13, Red Rum 425, and unemployed quadruple X Jedi.
X Jedi. He's quite a Jedi.
That's tough. I don't know what to think of these rumors. They are now coming with a ferocity that I find them hard to ignore. But at the same time, I've expected a lot from Nintendo.
Yeah.
But they also, I mean, their console was sort of like a 1.5 generation. It wasn't like the true.
It was the controls was the change, not
right.
Exactly.
And then they realized that they didn't offer enough nuance to actually satisfy any gamer who actually purchases games.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is that everybody in the world has a Wii, and nobody in the world buys games for their Wii. So
Well, now here's my memory, and correct me if I'm wrong. When did the Wii come out? 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2005. They acknowledged a new console at E3. And by acknowledge, I meant acknowledge. And that's it. We're working on something new. You'll hear about it soon. At TGS, we find out it's motion controlled, yet saw no games. Then it took another year to do that. So that's what I'm wondering. Do we have rumors that are expecting something substantive to come from Nintendo rather than, look, the fact that Nintendo's working on a new console
well, they
shouldn't
all
be
are.
surprising.
I mean, they all are.
exactly.
It's about as surprising as there's a presidential election in 2012.
Right.
No, we've been expecting a Wii HD since the Wii came out.
That's
So-
what I think is
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
Is the Wii HD a new console?
Exactly.
Or
We had that debate
is it
upstairs.
2.0?
Right.
I think it's 2.0. I don't think it's really a new console.
I mean, it will technically be new hardware.
Yes,
it will be
it
a new
is
console,
but it's also just kind of
But
like.
then did you say like the?
I already played HD,
I mean,
so
would
I
you
know.
say the Xbox, the PS3 Slim is a new console, or like the Elite Xbox with the HDMI out is
it's
a new
like
console?
technically it is. Yes.
Yeah.
a
I
new
I mean, we're
console,
assuming,
but
and I
it-
feel it's a safe assumption, that you can't just throw an HDMI out on the current Wii and get
Right.
HD.
Well, I
That
mean, yeah.
They're going to have to change the graphics hardware in there.
But we've seen those like emulators and stuff. We've seen screenshots of people
Right.
who've like had modded
Like
Wii's
Epic
that
Mickey
kind of
and,
that
like,
kind of
the original-
exports HD,
HD, of course.
Now,
so-
if it is a new Wii, I mean, they've already had Wii Motion Plus, which is supposed to improve the Wii experience, and that hasn't taken on because no one's adopting that.
Well, also nobody really understands what it does.
Right,
Like,
so I'm trying to
like,
figure-
well,
how do you explain
plus?
to your mom like why you need
Why
this
it's better.
item and why it's better and why it
Yeah.
didn't come with it in the first place and why it's like $60 and
So
yeah,
then
it's
what
impossible.
is a new Wii? I
Maybe-
can't.
I
I mean,
think that's-
it needs to be something more like beyond our.
or does it?
imagination.
Because
No
I'm pretty
control-
sure everybody in the world except for like 4 people has one.
okay,
So
Right.
Morgan,
there's not
you're about
really-
to speak with certainty. I can see it on your face.
I mean, they could put out a new console that has better stats than all of the other consoles, that makes me breakfast in the morning and is beautiful and is just a gorgeous piece of my living room, and I still won't buy it if there's no games to play on it.
Yep.
And there are games, but they're not aimed at us. They're aimed at my mom,
Right.
who doesn't play games.
So, I mean, I would have to throw this out
And
there.
My cousin.
So I don't care.
What
really.
if this is really the successor to the GameCube and it's a more traditional console that does HD
Oh my
and
God,
might
could it
bring
be
back?
purple?
Yeah, well, let's see how.
Nice.
And have a
Sorry.
handle so I can take you to Fred's house. Hey
You
there,
know what?
Bobby.
I will have to confess, I was excited. I was like, "But mom, I can carry it to school and I can show it to all
She's
my
like,
friends."
oh, my dead body. Now
Yeah.
I'm having class.
Oh, the rationalizations I used to make when I was trying to get my own game console. So obviously, we're not going to know anything until E3 when Nintendo does hold a press
We
conference.
can make some stuff up. I think we should just start
That's true.
tweeting rumors.
Wii 3.
Well, I mean, look,
I'm calling it the
Nintendo's
3.
so oblique
The
with their
Wii.
statements that that's probably not going to help. If they're not going to do it, part of me wishes they would actually kind of say that in a very emphatic and unequivocal way so that we can all stop this discussion and then they don't end up disappointing a room, which they have done many
Right.
times before.
when they come out
at
and they're
E3.
like, if you loved Connectimals, you're gonna love Nintendo 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone in
Spoiler.
the audience is like, oh,
jeez.
God.
Well, if Nintendo 7 does get announced, of course, we're going to be talking about it on
Yes.
Feedback. I would like to thank our illustrious panel, Jake Gaskill, Morgan Webb, Donnell Tucker. Remember, Portal 2 and the Mortal Kombat reviews are up on G4TV.com because what we talked about here is fascinating. It's much better when you hear it in their own words and their own voice. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, Feedback is always on G4TV.com, new every Wednesday. Something's going to happen between now and then, and so when it does, we'll be here yammering about it. Hello there. I'm Adam Sessler, host of X-Play, editor-in-chief at G4TV.com. I talk a lot about video games, and sometimes a camera is in front of me when I'm doing that. We call that Sessler's Soapbox. It takes about 2 minutes of your time, but trust me, you will hear invective and joy and probably a lot of rude things like you've never heard before in the context of video games. I do it for you, so you should check it out. It's up every Tuesday on G4TV.com.